All right. So welcome back to, we are going to put this in a podcast so we can safely say welcome back to the Aligned Mamas podcast. We are your hosts, Nikki Trout and Samantha Capstick. We are joined today by marriage counselor. She actually does other counseling, but I think you said you love to focus on marriage counseling. It's fun for you
I
and you
do.
feel like that's part of your groove. So her name is Tricia Pyatt. She is a part of E3 Counseling Solutions, founder or owner of that within Lincoln County, Troy, Missouri. And she is here today to give her best tips on ways to have a successful marriage. If you wouldn't mind kicking this off with an intro, a little bit about you, maybe where you grew up, how you got into this, and then we'll jump into your top tips.
Sure thing. All right. So, born and raised in Troy, lived here my whole life. Um, I have a husband. I got married very young. I was 18 when we got married, and we pretty quickly started trying for babies, and it didn't happen easily for us. We had a couple of losses. Um, and a big part of my story, I feel like, is after my second loss, and I was in the hospital. Our pastor at the time came by to visit with us and pray with us and just kind of support us through it. And he commented that I seemed like I was really at peace. And I told him that I did feel at peace because I felt like God was going to use what I had gone through to help other people at some point in my life. At that point in my life, I was probably 21, 22 years old. So I was still pretty young, had no idea what that would look like. But I just knew that God was going to use it. So, um, fast forward time, and I recognized my calling to be a counselor, and that was going to be my way of being able to help people through less than good circumstances.
Right.
Um, I have gone on to have a couple of kids. I have a son who is 21. My daughter is 14. My husband and I have been married for almost 26 years, I think, this year.
Wow.
Um,
Congrats.
Yeah,
so yeah, and it has not always been perfect. It's not always been easy, but it's good. We've made it. So we've gotten
That's
through
a
the hard stuff.
Yeah, I loved about the last counselors we had on, which they're not certified, but they're Christian counselors. Living in a biblical way. They actually their marriage was transformed, what they call very ugly, to such a
Mm,
beautiful and thriving relationship. And I love when a counselor even can come on and be vulnerable and say, "No, it wasn't pretty. Actually, it's very ugly."
yeah,
Because your
yeah,
life circumstances really, really help shape you too, in order to be able to
absolutely.
counsel other people. It's not just what you learn in school. It's probably more your life experiences than
Hmm.
even what you learn in school. So I love that you said that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it helps just create a stronger connection between me and my clients. The
Yeah.
fact that I have been through stuff. My husband and I have walked through difficult things together. Um, I'm thankful that our marriage has always been strong as far as that goes. There's John Gottman is a guy who's done a lot of research on marriage and relationships. And he talks about how when you're in the face of adversity, you either turn towards one another, turn away from one another, or turn against each other. And I'm grateful that, my husband and I, through difficult times, have definitely turned towards one another most of the time. I mean, obviously, not perfectly every time, but for the most part, we've been able to kind of turn towards one another. So,
That's awesome. That's really
so
special.
yeah, that's definitely helpful. I think it helps that we have been through so much together. I mean, we grew up
Right.
together, really. I was 18
Mhm.
and he was 21 when we got married. So we've just
Yeah,
kind
and
of
I
grown up
I feel
together.
like from marriages I've seen before we jump into where we're going is I do feel like there's been a theme of early marriages that where you feel like, oh, it's so beautiful, like grade school sweethearts and all these
Hmm.
things. I feel like there's a layer of really hard when you get married
Hmm.
so young.
Oh
Many,
yeah.
I mean, I've met with many people, and I would say most of them are still married to this day. Some aren't actually, but I think that's a whole set of like I don't know,
Hmm.
difficulties, which I don't even know
Hmm.
where you'd pinpoint it. Do you have
Right.
anything to say before we jump into that? Just out of curiosity, since you were married so early?
Oh gosh. Honestly, the most challenging thing was just learning what it means to be married because at that point in
Yeah.
time, we didn't have any couple friends to look to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, my husband and I both were raised by both of our parents, you know, they were married and still are and had good relationships. So, I think that helped.
Yeah.
Um, the biggest struggle was just the basics, like learning how to do finances together and like set goals. I mean, we missed out on a lot of the stuff because we really just didn't know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think there's definitely a benefit when we both kind of were on the same like level grounds, kind of both came out of the same types of homes and backgrounds, and so we had a lot of commonality. So that definitely helped. But if you, I was going to talk a little bit about like as a marriage counselor, and really I'm more of a couples counselor. I have a lot of clients who are just couples. They're either engaged or dating, not all married, but I kind of use the terms interchangeably, so it's just for reference. Um, but I thought I would talk about, as a couples therapist, what is the most common issue that I see, or some of the more common issues that people come in for. Um, but then also like what their issues really are, because a lot of times what people say is their reason for coming in, it's not really the real issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll kind of give some tips and stuff too. But
Sure.
um, the first thing I was going to go over is just the most common reasons that people come in for couples therapy. Um, I would say the most common thing that I hear from people when I say, okay, why are you here? Like, what brought you to this point? Is they'll say communication issues, which probably most people that are watching or listening can relate to that, right? Like, we've all had some sort of communication issues. But the problem is that doesn't really tell me much because I don't know what that means to them. Like, are they just not communicating at all? Like, they never talk? Are they not communicating about the important things? Are they fighting often? Like, what exactly is the issue with their communication? And so often it really has nothing to do with communication. Um, it maybe has to do with, you know, instead of communication issues, it's more so that their expectations in the marriage are not being met. And they maybe don't know how to communicate that. Um, so communication issues really is number one, the most common thing that I hear. Second more common thing is infidelity, which I
That's
think is
sad
what
that
most,
it's like your second
yeah,
thing. It just
yeah,
that breaks your heart. And obviously there was a
I
breakdown.
know.
And sometimes if I'm correct, sometimes infidelity happens just because the person's just a rotten person and they're gonna do
Hmm.
and do what they want to do. But I assume oftentimes too it's just that lack of communication, lack of
Hmm.
needs
Lack of
and whatnot.
connection. Yeah,
Yeah. That's
yeah, for
heartbreaking.
sure. It is, you know, it is really heartbreaking because my heart goes out to these people who, you know, are the not victim, I don't love the word victim, but you know, the one who's been cheated on. My heart goes out to them, but also when you get the background on their story and how they got to that point, you know, usually the one who has been cheated on has not been innocent in all of their relationship
Yeah.
either. And they definitely, you know, not that there is ever an excuse or reason or justification for cheating in a marriage or any relationship, but it's a process. It doesn't typically just happen for no reason. You know, it's because
Is there any
their wife is,
consistency among like why men cheat that you've
yeah,
seen a
I
few
would
times?
say number one thing that I see with that is, and I'm just going to use man woman here, not
Hmm.
because it's always this way, but I'm going to use the man as the example of being the one who cheated. Um, Very often it's the wife is not meeting her husband's needs. And I don't mean sexually, I mean like in any other way. You know, I mean, most people have heard about the five love languages. Um, you know, if you're not showing your partner that you love them in the way that they need to be shown love, they're going to be on empty and they're going to seek out a connection elsewhere if you're not giving it to them. Or if all you're
So
doing
even
is
if it
fighting
doesn't
and
seem like
nagging.
men need attention other than the intimacy,
Hmm.
they actually do, right? They're
Absolutely,
actually
they do.
craving,
Absolutely.
yeah, to be desired.
Hmm. Yeah. And then the third most common reason people come in, and honestly, this one is probably the saddest to me, is they're coming in just to see if their relationship is anything to salvage, to see if they can possibly make it work. And to me, that's so devastating because I feel like they're already coming in the door with the expectation that they're going to get divorced or that they're not going to end up together. You know, this is like their last hope.
Yeah.
Um, which talk about a lot of pressure. You know, I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
whew, they're counting on me. Like,
And some of them maybe are just checking the box, like so they
mm-hmm.
could tell everyone they tried
Yep,
counseling. You know, I'm sure
yep,
some are even like
absolutely.
dead set they're out.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it happens. Um, what I see as the more prevalent issues in couples, um, the first one is unmet expectations, and this one is frustrating because most of the time when someone comes in and their expectations are not being met in their relationship, it's because they've never spoken those expectations out loud. They've never told their partner, these are my expectations, or this is what I need from you. And so it's funny because it's like, well, I'm mad at you because you're not meeting my expectations, but I never told you what my expectations were. So,
Right.
what do you do with that?
So, is there
Um,
a way that you recommend women to speak to men about that? Because again, how is school to your son versus your daughter? Oh, good, fine.
right,
Is
right.
there any I don't know, thoughtful ways to engage in that conversation with the men?
Yes, absolutely. Um, it has to be something that you're talking about in a in the correct climate. I don't know how else to say it, but obviously when you guys are fighting and you're talking about one of them forgot to take the trash out last night or whatever the current argument is, that's not the time to bring up expectations like, oh yeah, and by the way, you never do this and this and this and this either, and this is what I expect out of you. So like timing is everything. um, and then just knowing your partner and how they need to be communicated with. um, for some people it's something that they prefer to do like in writing, like maybe send a text to their partner saying, hey, can we talk tonight about our relationship and some things that have been bothering me? Um, and then having that conversation face to face.
That's good.
But it's important to watch also, and I mean, I have this written down in other sections I was going to hit on tonight too, but it's important to watch for signs that you're overwhelming your partner. If I'm sitting down, my husband is not a big talker. Um, he might get overwhelmed if I'm throwing too much information at him at once. And so I need to be very careful when I'm going to talk to him about something serious. I need to make sure the timing is right, that he's doing okay mentally, that he's in a good place. And then also watch for signs that I'm not like completely overwhelming him by just rapid fire, like this. Um, so
Can't
it
we
really
all
comes
do
down
that?
to just knowing your partner. I know
Yeah.
we do.
And
Absolutely. We bulldoze over
shouldn't,
him sometimes.
shouldn't we use terms of like, instead of projecting it onto them? Because a lot of times too, if our expectations is like we made those up and that's like what we
Hmm.
feel our needs are. So it's not technically like, I mean, for the baseline, there's yes and no or wrong and right or whatever, but your
Right.
needs might be totally different and your partner never saw that before. So instead of like projecting it onto them, like use like, I feel this and try to make it more about what you need as a person versus
Hmm.
you're
That's
not
good.
blah blah blah.
Yeah. You
Right.
Like
never.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was going to be something too that I hit on in tips is just owning your part in it and saying that I am feeling this way. I'm not saying that you're wrong or you're doing something wrong, but this is how I'm feeling and these are my needs. That definitely
Yeah.
goes over a lot better than you're not doing this and you're not.
Right.
Nobody wants to sit and listen to that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, the other big issue that I see is underlying mental health issues. I cannot tell you how many times a couple will come in and there's a lot of fighting, arguing, things like that. And a big part of it is that maybe one of them has anxiety that they never knew they had, and that's
Mm,
where their responses are coming from, is just that anxiety. Um, if you've got a partner who maybe grew up really poor and they have a lot of anxiety about finances, that means they might come across as a little bit controlling sometimes with finances. Not because they
sure.
don't trust you, but because of where they come from and because of their own underlying anxiety. Um, but that's something I hear a lot too, is that, they think their partner is being controlling when in reality it's their partner just trying to control as much as they can because that's what eases their own anxiety.
Sure.
So,
Nothing to do with them, but it
mm-mm,
can be portrayed as that or seen as that. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Um, so let's jump into tips. This is probably the fun part. Um, all of it's fun for me, but
I always love too, if you have any of these you want to share, if you like real stories of people that maybe you
yes,
helped or helped salvage, or things that really stood
absolutely.
out to you, person A, person B. I know you can't like share their names, but I
Yeah,
think
sure.
those real stories are always beneficial too.
Absolutely. Um, that actually ties in really well with my very first tip, which is don't fight about things that you're not going to leave your partner for. Um, which
Mm,
is putting it very directly, but
yeah.
it's true. If you are coming into counseling and all you're talking about is they're not taking out the trash and they're loading the dishwasher wrong, or they're, you know, not cleaning up messes or whatever, is that really something that you're going to potentially end your relationship with
Mm-hmm.
that person over,
Yeah.
um, because if it's not, then why are we fighting about it to the point where now you're coming into counseling because you can't even talk about these things anymore? That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so tip number one is just don't fight about those things. Like, there's not just one way to load the dishwasher. There's not a right or a wrong way. We all think there is.
Hmm.
And it's our way, it's the right way, right?
So
But
you're
there's
saying put it
not.
into perspective, like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
literally stop and think, okay, like we're like I've been mad for the last 3 months about him not doing this or that.
Oh,
Like if
you
it am I cutting
you're
out?
Yeah,
cutting
you're
out.
cutting out.
Okay.
No,
Dang
she's
it.
cutting out.
Okay.
Okay.
Am I okay now?
Oh,
Huh,
dang,
huh,
So,
huh.
internet. In the name of Jesus, let the internet flow
It's
freely.
probably my family. All my family is
That's
home
your dream
now.
robot. What?
Yeah. I said it's probably my family. They're probably all
We
streaming
don't.
now.
Oh,
Can you
here,
hear me
now you're
now or
talking
no?
good.
Okay.
yeah, now we're good.
Yay.
Um,
Okay, I was saying,
but
so
yeah.
you're what you're basically saying is if it's like little potatoes, small potatoes, like stop and think like why are we, it's like letting the devil
Right.
come in. Like why are we like letting this come in and destroy
Hmm.
us if it's something so little? I get
Right.
that.
I
Yeah.
once heard something too that said something like if you think they're loading the dishwasher wrong, that's like a you problem. If
Hmm.
Absolutely.
the, different things that like these little annoyances that we're nagging at, actually,
Hmm.
hey, it doesn't bother them. It's not interrupting
Mm-mm.
their life. Why do they have to like change things to please? Like it's a you problem. So like you need to work
Exactly.
on yourself to fix the
Hmm.
thing so that it doesn't annoy you so much or whatever,
Yes. Isn't it
Absolutely.
funny though too? Some of the things I would say to my husband, which is I have a great husband, like some of the things I would say to him, if he said it to me, oh my gosh, I would be offended.
Uh-huh.
But it's like,
Uh-huh.
why do I not think the same? Why do I not think it goes both ways? Because he's a man, he hides
Right.
his feelings, he acts like he doesn't care. So,
Uh-huh.
I try to catch myself more and more these days and like,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because it's not worth it. At the end of the day, it really is not worth going to bed angry over the dishwasher.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
And that, I say the dishwasher, but it's so many other things too.
Yeah.
It's these little things that bother us, but like you said, it's really a me problem that, my husband missed the laundry basket and threw a sock
Mhm.
on the floor and didn't notice it because he has ADHD and just genuinely doesn't notice it. I notice it. It bothers me. Well, that's a me issue. Pick it up and
Hmm.
put it in the basket if it bothers me, you know?
Yeah.
I can do that. Why
And
Right.
it
not
takes
if
how
I'm
many
walking
seconds
by?
to do that versus
Yeah,
making a
Right.
negative deposit in your marriage
right.
bank account. I
Mm-hmm.
also heard
Exactly.
another story of a wife who nagged, I think I've shared this in a podcast, but a wife who nagged her husband all the time for picking up, he didn't put his clothes in the hamper, and then he passed away, and she was like, what I wouldn't give,
Oh.
like, makes me want to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Like to
Mm-hmm.
just pick his clothes up one more time. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yep.
I'm never going to
Yep.
complain about anything.
No.
Right. Again,
Like,
perspective. I mean, that
Right.
it does. It changes things when you really look at it that way.
Well, I'm the type, this has happened before. You get so mad about something so dumb, like what we're talking about, and
Mm-hmm.
then your husband goes out of town or whatever, and you're and when you're upset because your mind just focuses on that, just like narrows in and just only focuses on
Mm-hmm.
that thing you're mad about, you almost can't think about anything else you like about him in that moment, which is so pathetic and so sad. Then he
Right.
like leaves for work or he leaves and goes out of town and I need him for like 89 million things. And I'm like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my God, I wouldn't live without you,
Right.
It's just, again, it's having that perspective when you get so frustrated and you
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know, it's like you let the devil in on something
mhm,
and it's like a
Right.
seed that, if you catch it early on enough, you can, get it out of the ground and it doesn't like plant and grow and fester. But if you wait too long, that stupid thing is going to turn into a bunch
Mm-hmm.
of other stupid things and potentially ruin your
mhm.
marriage.
Right. And again, is it worth it? You know,
Yeah,
do
No.
those things really matter enough to end a relationship over?
Yeah,
Probably
that's
not.
good.
yeah,
So,
that's good. I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So then tip two, and this kind of ties into what we were just talking about, but if you're overwhelmed or you're overstimulated or you're stressed out, burnt out, whatever you are, just tell your partner that. Ask for help. Don't expect it. Don't expect that,
Mhm.
and again, this is something that comes up all the time that maybe the wife is like, well, I just wish he would notice that the floor needs to be swept. Okay. Well, he didn't notice.
Yeah.
So
And they don't. Their
what
brains
are
don't
we
think
supposed
like
to do?
ours. Yeah, unless
Good
they're one of
point.
those men, which is very rare, they just don't see it. They
Yeah.
literally don't. Give it
And
give it
that's the
up.
thing. It's not intentional. Like
Yeah.
I know that I notice different things than what my husband notices. He notices the grass. He notices that the chickens need food or water or that their coop needs to be cleaned out. He
Hmm.
notices things that I would never notice. And I notice things that he doesn't notice. And like, so why are we not just tackling everything as a team? Why are
Mhm.
we like picking each other apart? Like, well, you didn't take the trash out. Well, I didn't either. So, I mean, somebody's got to do it. Just do
I
it
love
if you
it.
notice it. Like, again, why are we fighting about these things?
Hmm.
Um, and if it really is that maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you really are just completely overwhelmed and overtouched and, all the things by the time your husband gets home and all you want is for him to take the kids from you so you can get some stuff done and not be bothered, right? But if you're not telling him that,
Hmm.
then you can't get mad at him when he comes home and goes straight to the bedroom and starts scrolling on his phone because now he's home from work and he's ready to
Mhm.
decompress. And so, like, wives are like, well, he should just know that this is what I need. And husbands are like, well, she should just know that I need
Hmm.
some quiet time when I get home from work because I'm stressed.
And
Okay,
it's
well, are you guys talking about it?
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
there are some easy solutions there. Talk about what you need. Give your husband 10 minutes when he gets home, 15 minutes to decompress. And then you give the kids to him, so then you get what you need too. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be an all or nothing or a one or the other. It can be both. Both of our needs can be met, but they're
Mhm.
not going to be if we're not talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too often, if you are in that role of like stay-at-home mom and working husband, you guys can easily get jealous of each other. Like, well, he gets to go and he has quiet time in the
Mm-hmm.
car or whatever, and then he's
Yep.
like, you get to be home all day. And so that can try not to let that stuff take root where you can,
Mm-hmm.
see. And then it's funny because we have had that discussion before where he's like, well, you get to be here all day. And then I forget, it wasn't that long ago. He was here when the kids were home and it was like an hour and he's like, oh my gosh, is this what you deal with all day? I couldn't send me to work. Like,
Yep.
they're probably same if I went to, work. So it's like, yes, they're two different roles.
Yep.
We each have to play our part. There's pros and cons in each, and just like love and
Absolutely.
support and look at it as a team and a balancing act versus like
Hmm.
you against him in that area. But
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And a real life story that I'll tell you guys is, and anytime I tell a story about a client, I change details a little bit just so nobody would ever know who I'm talking about if it, came up. Um, but this is a story I've told so many people, and it cracks me up to this day. The couple came in, and she was a stay-at-home mom, and he worked, and they had young kids, and there was one day that he got home from work and noticed that there was a cracker on the floor under the kitchen table. And immediately he's like, "Did you not clean up after the kids ate their snack?" And she was like, "Well, yeah, I did. Why?" And he's like, "Well, there's a cracker under the table." And she's like, "Okay, so pick it up." And he's like, "Well, I just don't understand why you wouldn't have swept it up." And, so it turned into this big thing. And as it turns out, that cracker stayed under the table because they were both just digging in their heels about it. And neither one of them were going to clean it up at this point. So it's a competition now. This cracker was under the table for like 2 weeks, which first of all, I'm like, okay, you guys need a dog. That cracker's
Yeah.
never going to stay on the floor that long in my house. But also like, what is happening? Why
yeah.
are you like not working as a team but working against each other like you're on opposing teams here? It's just pick up the stupid cracker if it bothers you. And so yeah, it's again like just talking to each other, expecting that when you get home from work, and I've been home with the kids all day, there's probably going to be some messes.
Right.
Deal with it. And if you don't like it, then clean it up.
Yeah.
But I'm doing the best I can here. And so, yeah, that was just kind of a funny story that I like to laugh about now because I'm like, they were really fighting for 2 weeks over a stupid cracker. And honestly, I don't remember what ended up happening to the cracker. Who picked it up, how that looked. Probably one of the little kids got under the
Golden.
table and found it and ate it, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. And sometimes I think that stuff like that seems like such a dumb thing to argue about. And that
Hmm.
that husband, unless he's like a jerk, he probably just had like a really bad day,
Yeah.
came home,
Exactly.
was frustrated. Probably one of those
Hmm.
things like that was so dumb. Why did I even say anything?
Yep.
And it like explodes into like
Yep.
this nothingness explodes into something because we're like in our
Hmm.
emotions and we're like hangry and tired and like
Right. But
sometimes we
not
just need to
communicating
like
any of that.
Mhm.
put ourselves in timeout and like have a snack and calm down and like.
Yep.
But like
Yep.
I don't know. I feel like when we're in
Yep.
those moods of like we're frustrated or like for a stay-at-home mom, like you're super overwhelmed and husband walks in and
Hmm.
makes like a simple comment and you're like, "What do you mean?" And, like we've all
Right.
been there where like we explode. Sometimes it's
What do you
best to
mean?
just
What
be
did I
like,
do all day?
"Yeah,
Famous
yeah,
last
Right.
words.
yeah."
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you, and he's like, really? It's like, no, I was really just wanting to know what you did today. Like, it's like,
Right.
maybe we need to like control it and be like, ooh, okay, I overreacted. Look
I
at
Yeah.
think
this over.
offense is Brittany
Mhm.
O'Malley has a really good phrase. She uses offense as the something of the enemy. It's like, yes, if my husband came home and did that, I would be irate, like literally
Hmm.
Yeah.
irate. But is that going to help
Yeah.
anything? And if we are saying we're going to walk with Jesus and focus on whatever's true, lovely, beautiful, like think on these things, that wouldn't fit into the category, that wouldn't make it through that filter. So if we can only, even if we're a little upset at that, take a moment, breathe, just be calm. And even if it doesn't make sense, even if he doesn't deserve it, later on that day, do something sweet for him.
Mhm.
Make him a good dinner, scratch his head, almost like if you're mad at him, like how good would it be if you like blessed him? I've thought about that many
Hmm.
times, even when people like curse you, like pray for them. Like I feel like that would be so revolutionary in marriage, in myself
Yeah.
included, if I could catch myself in those
Absolutely.
moments, because there's being so offended does nothing for you. Like it,
Mhm.
it just
Mm-mm.
wouldn't. You can't
Mm-mm.
problem solve anything if you're in a state of being offended. And I love how you didn't just like say like, now, wasn't this guy a jerk? You're like, hey, no, they obviously have a communication issue. Like, you don't know exactly. He's got a side. She's got a side. They all
Right.
both have histories. And I love how you didn't just like jump to that, because my mind went there like, oh, no, he didn't.
Right.
But it's true. Like, you fell in love for a reason. Like,
Right.
it's something that is worth guarding, especially if you have children. And I again, being offended does nothing. And it's just like not forgiving somebody long term. It only just kills you. So if only the sooner
Right.
we can like let those things go, and you want
Yeah.
what you get out of it. If you want a good marriage and a loving husband, are you being loving to him?
Right.
Even when he
Yeah.
doesn't deserve it.
Absolutely.
So
Right. Yeah. And honestly, like the third tip that I was going to give, again, like you just basically made the point for me, is I'm sure we've all heard of the 5 love languages. And so when you are doing that nice thing for your husband, when you're mad at him, make sure it's the language that he speaks. And so, yeah, tip number 3 is just make sure you are giving your partner what they need. And that ties in with love languages. So for those of you who don't know, there are 5 love languages. There's gifts, there's physical touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, and quality time. Um, and basically, we all have our primary language that we need to be shown love in. And if we're not, then we're not going to feel loved. I mean, it really is that simple. Um, and a real life example would be, let's say my husband's love language is quality time, but mine's acts of service. So if I want to do something nice for him, I maybe want to clean out his truck and do something for him and some sort of acts of service. And not that he wouldn't appreciate that, but it's not going to mean as much to him. He's going to be like, okay, thanks. Like it's not going to do anything to fill his tank. Um, Whereas if his love language is quality time and I'm giving him quality time, I'm saying, hey, let's go sit on the patio and just chill together and listen to music, then now we're making a connection. Now I'm giving him the type of love that he needs in order to really feel loved. And likewise, if my love language is acts of service and all he's doing is just bringing me home a candy bar here and there, and like that should be enough to appease me, well, that's not what I need in order to feel loved. And so we have to make sure that the things that we're doing are the things that our partner really needs to make sure that it's having the appropriate effect on them. Does that make sense?
that's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think
Um,
too, I didn't realize at the time, but over time your love language can change. So, I guess keeping updated on that. Like when the kids were little, I was
mhm,
definitely acts of service, like through and through. Like, help me
mhm.
with the dishes or laundry, bro.
Save
Like,
me.
Right.
like I'm drowning. But
Yeah.
now, it's changed or whatever. So just kind of like keeping in touch with your partner and realizing that just because, 10 years ago or whatever, just keeping up with
Yeah.
them.
Absolutely.
Do
So
you
like,
mind shedding light on intimacy? We bring it up all the time. It's not a topic it's like we want to talk about, but we feel like it's
Yeah.
so, so important. And we
Mhm.
have both known friends, you know, that
Mhm.
don't seem to value that. And we feel like that is so important. So any light you can shed on that.
Yeah. And I would say with that, probably the most common thing that comes up in sessions is, or regarding intimacy anyway, um, is that one partner is not happy that they're not getting what they need in that area. But most likely it's because, okay, let's just say the husband is the one who needs more of that.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, that's the way it goes. um, so if that husband is not showing love to his wife in the way that she needs to be shown love, she's not going to want to be intimate with him, right? Like, if my needs aren't being met and I'm feeling no emotional connection, then I'm not going to want to be intimate with you. And
Mm-hmm.
so the best way to make sure that spark is still there is to make sure that you guys are communicating about the ways that you need to be shown love and that you need you need an emotional connection. Like, intimacy is never going to happen if you are not making any effort to connect in other ways too. And so I would say the number one thing to focus on is just that emotional connection. Um, because if you're connecting emotionally, you're going to be a lot more likely to connect physically. And that issue goes very, very deep, and there are so many other ways we could talk about it, but obviously we don't have all night. So that's kind of my quick summary, is just really making sure that you're keeping that connection there. Probably the simplest way to put it is make sure that when you're communicating, you are communicating clearly and concisely. Is that, I don't know if that's the right way to use that word, but just keeping it short and simple. Um, and this is my favorite way to do this, to make sure that when you are communicating to your partner, you are focusing on the things that really matter. And there's 3 questions you can ask. And these are things you would ask yourself and then kind of communicate this to your partner. So, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? And what is the solution? And so, with what am I feeling? Okay, I'm feeling overstimulated, overwhelmed, overtouched because of, why am I feeling it? Because of our young kids and being home with them and them always needing something from me. Okay, well, what is the solution? This is the most important part of these 3 questions, because if we're just saying, I'm overwhelmed, I'm overstimulated, blah, 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 all these things, because the kids always need me and blah, and we're just, throwing it all out there, but we're not focusing on what would help us to feel better in that situation, then why are we even talking about it? You've got to have a solution ready for your partner to be able to tell them, like, this is what I need in order to feel like my needs are being met, and in order to kind of like be able to get in the right headspace to maybe be intimate or whatever, whatever else may come.
I
So.
feel like when I was in the depths of that time, because when my kids were young, I also was babysitting kids, and so there was like a lot of them, and I was just like, oh my God. So I was like coming unraveled for a
Mhm.
few years of my life. But I felt at one point Jonathan, he just took it on himself, but he ended up, it was like, would be like right after dinner, like we'd eat dinner and then he'd be like, okay, go take a bath.
Mhm.
And him and the kids would like clean up, but then he said it would also like force him to spend some more quality one-on-one time with the kids, or like more intentional time, because like I wasn't there, like, he wasn't worried about me
Mhm.
or trying to spend time with me. And that helps so much. Like just being able to go and like take a bath alone and just be like, ah, and then afterwards you're like, oh, I love you so much. Thank you. I needed that. And so then,
Mhm.
usually the husband ends up happy at the end too, It's
Yeah.
like a
Absolutely. Yeah.
win. But I
Again,
just
like,
feel like
it
for
really
moms that
doesn't
are
take
going,
much.
yeah, it's
Just got to
just
talk
like
about these things.
simple. Yeah.
Mhm.
And something else. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was just gonna say earlier on the conversation of defense, something I wanted to share that I feel like helps us a lot is if you find yourself fighting over a dumb thing, or someone makes a comment, or like your husband makes a comment and you're like, I am gonna lose it. Like, what did you just say to me? Like, just
Mhm.
stopping and being like, what's your intention with that comment? Like, where is
Mhm.
this going? And then a lot of
Yep.
times they'll be like, oh, sorry, I'm really frustrated, I'm overwhelmed with the kids, whatever,
Mhm.
like, nothing. There's like, what is the point of this? What's the
Right.
solution going to be? Because this seems like something that if we are just nagging each other on, we can just end it
Uh-huh.
there. So I think that's like really helpful or it
Yeah.
has been for us. Yeah. Like, what are your, like, if one of you makes a dig at the other person, like, what's your intention with that? And I think it makes the other person be like, too, like, oh, shoot, that was kind of
Mhm.
rude and
Yeah.
unnecessary. There's no point of that. Like, if you don't have
Right.
anything nice to say, don't say it. No.
Right.
But
Yeah, and that, again, like turning towards one another and not against each other or
Mhm.
away from one another. It kind of goes back to that and the importance of just making sure that you're functioning as a team and that you're not fighting one another.
Mhm.
Because man, I tell you
Mhm.
what, yes,
Yeah,
it's
for
so much
sure.
easier to do life, and we don't have to think the same way. We don't have
Mhm.
to, have the same ideas and approaches to everything. That's what makes us a great team. We balance each other out, and we each have our own way of approaching life. That's the beautiful
Mhm.
thing about a relationship.
Mhm.
That's
It's
a
so
that's an
true.
asset, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's been our like for our marriage. We have a great marriage. It's been I want to say easy. We've invested a lot into it, but I think the key is it's not that we don't have those like silly bickers or whatever. It's
Sure.
like having the rule of like not going to bed angry. So at the end of the night, like it might be awkward or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like you just hug each other and be like, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot of times if I'm still grumpy about it, I'll be like, I'm sorry that
Right.
you are annoying and you're wrong a lot or whatever. Like make a stupid thing to like break the ice, but like not letting that offense build up and like pulling that
Right.
seed out, like Nikki said, right
Yeah.
away. So that way it's not one on top of another and it just starts
Mm-hmm.
compiling. I think that's the
Yep.
key. Like, clean slate every day. Like,
Absolutely. Super important. And that goes back to emotional connection. You've got to make sure that that's a priority, because once you lose emotional connection, the rest is just going to be crumbling soon. Like, it's not going to be far behind. And so, date nights, as far as like going out for date nights, not important, honestly. Like, when you've got young kids, maybe you don't have family in the area, or you don't trust people to watch your kids. That's okay. There are plenty of ways to do a date night in the home. There are games, there are books, there are apps. I mean, there are so many ways to connect at home, doing kind of like a date night at home. There's no need to actually leave the house if you don't have that luxury, because I understand not everybody does. Um, but absolutely, it is one of the most important things, is to just make sure you are getting time regularly to really connect with your partner with no distractions, or at least as few distractions as possible. Not watching TV together while you're talking, not on your phones, not doing anything else, but really just focusing on one another and connecting. And like I said, there are so many games and books and things that ask questions, that you guys can talk about. And yeah, and so like it doesn't have to look like a traditional date night, like, oh, we have dinner together and then we go home. It doesn't have to be that. Stay home if you want, but you've got to make sure that you are getting one-on-one time without the kids, at least a little bit. I would love every day, but at least once a week. But again, like, no matter what your excuse is, there's no excuse for not connecting when you're at home together. There
mhm.
really isn't. Even if the kids are there and running wild and being noisy, you've got to find a way to connect. You just have to. Being silly together really is, like, just having fun together is such a valuable thing to do. And I think that's underestimated a lot. I think people don't even realize, like, that they're losing that. And
Mhm.
then when they start to get it back, it's like, okay, this is nice. Why did we stop having fun and laughing together?
Okay, so we always end the podcast this way to help moms with ideas. So, what did you have for dinner tonight?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, I actually ate a fairly healthy dinner. We had chicken wings tonight. I think the
Mhm.
last time you asked it in the group, I said I had a microwave cookie with whipped cream. That was my dinner. I don't always eat the best, but I did eat some protein tonight.
Yum. Did you make them or they bought?
Yeah, we make them.
Yum. Well,
Yeah.
I told you ladies what I had, but it was a really good dinner, and I'm gonna post a picture and share it. But there's a TikTok video going viral right now, so I tried it, and I did ground beef Mongolian style, so like soy sauce. I put a little hoisin sauce in, garlic, ginger, and then roasted potatoes, cottage cheese, avocado, pineapple, cilantro, and hot honey on top of it. And it was really good. 10 out of 10. Awesome. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. See you next time, Mama.
See you next time, Mom.
That's
I
fun.
failed.
Yeah, I know. It's like,